Welcome back. This is Tom Cifelli, the presenter of Captive Experts Client and Referral Associate Training Webinar Series. This segment 3 is going to target advanced underwriting issues. This is a really important area. Our segment number 2 was pretty broad and general, and it applied design issues both in terms of the insurance program a captive would write as well as all other aspects impacting the design underlying the business plan of the captive. In this segment, we're going to focus in on specifically policy related and policy program related underwriting issues that are hot topics in design today. So we're going to cover policy selection limits and pricing, not by lines of coverage, but more generically, and how they're selected and how they're rated and priced, factors considered when underwriting them, areas of concern from both regulatory, state insurance department regulators as well as tax regulator areas of concern as well, and professional service providers like myself, just areas of concern regarding best practice standards or lack of them. And we'll touch on risk pool, underwriting and design considerations, and if we have time, we'll discuss trends. Advanced underwriting design issues. The first level of any design is, assess if you can reduce commercial insurance expense. If you're designing a captive program and you're not looking at that, that should be a concern. Most businesses, unless they're relatively large and have $1 million or more in commercial insurance expense, are probably not going to be able to meaningfully reduce core commercial coverages, at least not initially until they build significant reserves inside their captive. Level 2, in terms of design issue analysis, is look for gaps in the commercial coverages. We talked about this in our overall design webinar, but this is really important where you need to understand commercial insurance policies. You need to read them. You can't just take a broker summary of policies and trust that. You actually need to read the contractual documents that are given to you from the commercial insurance companies, see where their gaps are and their limitations are, and then target those with your captive. That really should be job one of a good captive design. And don't do it just generically with like a deductibles and gaps policy that's kind of generically priced between captive applications. This is very much a facts and circumstances and custom rating based on a myriad of factors situation if you do the job well. Level 3. Then look at, do you need exotic coverages? Are they really necessary? Are they priced reasonably in your design? There's a growing use of, and I put exotic in quotes, there's a growing use of exotic coverages today. Let's put it this way. This is one of the areas of great innovation in the small and mid-market size company captive market. Supply disruption coverage, business disruption coverage, all types of broader scope of EPLI and wage and hour coverages. The commercial markets are introducing product around the world and in the U.S. markets in response to innovations made in the smaller captive area. So, well, I don't want to suggest you should never use exotic coverages. I think you should minimize their use or at least price them extremely reasonably, all factors considered. The one-size-fits-all pricing model on these exotic coverages is just not a good practice, and it needs to evolve. Also, as you're doing a design and you want to professionally support the policy selections and pricing, you should periodically research availability of similar coverages in the commercial marketplace, and if possible, even obtain, where they are out there, obtain commercial rate schedules and the like, and see how they're pricing. As you know, you could contact 3 commercial insurance brokers and say, quote me these 5 standard lines of coverages for this client company, and they're going to come back with a wide range. Even for the same policy, the same limit, the same deductible, the same title on the policy suggesting the policy manuscripts are similar, you could get someone quoting $30,000 in one case and $130,000 in another. So Rating and pricing of policies is definitely a subjective science, even in the commercial insurance markets. But consider as many factors as you can, including if there's commercial policies out there emerging and how they're priced. So basically the takeaway on this slide is one size fits all is not good underwriting at all. And so try to avoid it at all costs. Areas of concern in captive design today, the major ones for me as a professional and what I've experienced out there is policy period backdating. I think anytime any contractual document is backdated, it just gives me bad feelings professionally. I don't see why that should be done, and there better be some real valid reasons. In the emerging captive, smaller captive application marketplace, it seemed like, if you formed the captive in October of a given year, you might issue calendar year policies. Retroactive coverage for things which is done in the commercial marketplace too is different than policy period backdating. I just don't understand that practice. To the degree that's still going on, it should stop. Every commercial insurance product I've ever purchased, it's dated as of the month that I've applied for it out for 6-month or 1-year period. The other areas of concern is subjective pricing of policies, just applied broadly to different client facts and circumstances without any meaningful price variation. I know independent underwriting and actuarial work could get really expensive to the degree you'd want them to customize every single policy and price, but I think that's a trend which should be pushed for by practitioners in the industry, even if not because of regulatory concerns. I just think it's when you're customizing an insurance program as you do with a captive, you should customize the policies to the particular application as much as you can. Consider factors broadly and do price adjustments accordingly. And have clients push back, in terms of the design of the policies and deductible levels and limits and things like that. Reasonableness of policy pricing is important. So the harder you work on it, the better. Don't haircut design steps like this. Risk pooling. Where do we go? We have a whole segment on risk pooling. We'll just touch on it here by saying risk pooling practices vary greatly. I think in general they need to become more sophisticated, certainly to meet my expectations and requirements. The risk pools I'm involved in today are excellent compared to risk pooling practices not that long ago, especially in the enterprise risk marketplace. Risk pool programs, one bucket for all policy types doesn't make sense. Just like a commercial underwriter may say, I don't want this client under any conditions. In a captive market, when you're talking about pooling coverages between unrelated captives, you should be able to have a pooling mechanism and practice in place where you can ignore certain lines of coverage that are just too risky for the pool, and then other lines of coverage that are acceptable should have different types of reinsurance structures to apply to them as opposed to a one-size-fits-all. The Harbor Risk Pool facility is an excellent case of a sophisticated pooling mechanism with advanced underwriting processes and procedures to apply. That's the end of this training video 3. It ran longer than expected for a short number of slides, but I think the areas discussed are of extremely critical importance and are going to be hot topics over the next several years in the captive industry. Thank you for watching it. Visit our websites for more information and